The first night at the gas station started like a bad dream. Silent, heavy, and stretched too thin. The building sat alone on a forgotten stretch of road between two empty towns. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the air like a swarm of flies. Every sound echoed too long, even the click of the register keys. Roy, the manager, tossed me the keys and a folded sheet of paper before he left. "Just follow the rules and you'll be fine," he said. He didn't smile. His eyes stayed on the door, not me. When I opened the paper, I realized it wasn't a list of duties. It was a list of rules, printed in faded ink on an oil-stained page. 10 in total. Lock the bathroom after midnight. Don't turn off the security cameras. If someone asks for directions to Highway 13, tell them it's closed. Never look directly at the pumps between 3:03 and 3:13 in the morning. The rest of the page was smudged, unreadable. A streak of something brown, rust or dried blood, cut through the lower half. I laughed under my breath, telling myself it was a joke. Maybe an initiation for new hires. But the longer I stood there, the harder it was to believe that. The air inside the store felt stale, like something had been sealed in. By 11:30, the road outside was dead. No headlights, no passing trucks. I brewed coffee, cleaned the counter, and tried to stay busy. The security camera monitor buzzed faintly in the corner. For a second, one of the feeds flickered black, then returned. The timestamp skipped ahead by 3 seconds. I checked the wiring. Everything looked fine. The neon sign outside flickered in the fog, spelling gas in uneven light. The hum beneath it deepened, steady and low, almost like breathing. I locked the bathroom door early, just to ease my mind. When midnight came, the station felt different. The temperature dropped, and a faint smell of gasoline leaked in from outside. My reflection in the glass looked pale, stretched by the light. The clock ticked louder than it should. I tried calling Roy, but the line only gave static. Behind me, the coffee machine hissed, even though it wasn't on. My pulse matched the sound of the pumps outside. I forced myself to sit at the counter, pretending to read an old magazine, but my eyes kept drifting toward the window. At 12:58, something brushed against the glass. Not a hand, not an animal. Just pressure, soft and slow, like the night itself was testing the barrier. When I looked, there was nothing but fog curling around the pumps. The shadows seemed to bend inward, forming vague shapes that vanished whenever I blinked. The longer I stared, the more I felt the rules weren't warnings at all. They were boundaries holding something out, or in. The clock above the door glowed red. 1 o'clock in the morning. 2 hours until the time mentioned in Rule 4. I folded the list carefully, slid it into my pocket, and whispered to no one. "Don't look at the peazor. Pumps." The words didn't sound like mine. The next night started quiet, almost peaceful. I told myself the first shift was just nerves, nothing more. But when the fog returned, thicker, heavier, almost solid, it felt like the air had been waiting for me. The pumps hummed again, that same deep pulse beneath the ground. I avoided looking at them. I remembered Rule 4. Around 2:30 in the morning, headlights appeared down the road, moving slow, too slow. The car stopped at the edge of the lot, idling with its lights flickering weakly. An old gray sedan, maybe from the 1980s. I watched for a moment, expecting the driver to step out and buy gas, but the door didn't open. The engine stopped. The lights stayed on. After a minute, a man got out. Tall, thin, wearing a soaked brown jacket that dripped steadily onto the pavement. He didn't go to the pumps. He just stood there, staring through the glass. His eyes didn't blink. I waved, then asked, "You need something, sir?" He smiled, or maybe tried to, The corners of his mouth twitched, but his face didn't move. When he spoke, his voice was a rasp, dry and familiar. "You know the rules," he said. My stomach turned cold. "Never look at the pumps after 3. He shouldn't have known that. No one should. The air in the station thickened. I backed toward the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did Roy send you?" I asked. No answer. He just stood there, dripping, staring. I blinked once, and when I opened my eyes, he was gone. The car was still there, lights off, driver's door open. I checked the security footage. Every camera showed static from 2:31 to 2:33. 2 missing minutes. My reflection on the monitor looked off, lagging behind by a second. I turned away. Something knocked on the back door. 3 times, slow and steady. I froze. The sound came again, this time from the bathroom. I didn't move. The knocking stopped, replaced by a whisper. It came from the intercom, the same voice as before. "You broke one?" it said softly. I looked down at the rule sheet. Rule 6 was smeared now, the ink wet again. I hadn't touched it. I checked the clock. 2:59 in the morning. My heartbeat synced with the hum of the pumps. The static from the monitor deepened into a low groan, almost like breathing. The lights flickered. The car outside vanished. And then, for a second, I saw him again, standing behind the pumps, watching me from the fog, lips moving through no sound came through the glass. 3:03 in the morning. The humming began again, stronger this time, shaking the windows. The bottles on the shelves rattled, and the radio behind the counter turned on by itself, only static and faint whispers overlapping each other, like voices caught in a storm. I shut my eyes, whispered the rules out loud like a prayer, and waited for the 10 minutes to end. I didn't open them until I felt the silence return and the air loosen, as if something huge had just stepped back into the fog. The third night came too fast. I told myself I wouldn't come back after what I saw, but Roy never answered my calls. My paycheck had already been deposited. It felt like the station wanted me back, like the road itself pulled my car toward it. When I parked, the lights were already on. The door was unlocked. No one had been scheduled before me. Inside, the air smelled worse. Metallic, damp, with something rotten beneath. The rule sheet was still taped beside the register, but now a new note had been added in shaky handwriting. If you hear breathing near the pumps, don't respond. The ink was still wet. By 2:55 in the morning, the fog had swallowed everything beyond the station's edge. The world ended in gray. I checked the monitors again and saw faint outlines near the pumps. Too tall, too thin to be human. They swayed slowly, like figures underwater. The cameras crackled, distorting their shapes. My palms were sweating. 3:03 in the morning. The sound started low, a deep hum that grew until it felt like the floorboards vibrated under my shoes. The lights flickered red. The pumps clicked on by themselves. I remembered the rule. Never look directly at them. So I turned away, eyes locked on the counter, counting seconds in my head. Something shifted in the reflection of the cooler glass. Movement. It wasn't outside. It was behind me. I could hear it now, that slow breathing the note warned about. Wet, uneven, right by my ear. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. My throat felt sealed shut. At 3:06, the intercom crackled. "Don't turn around," a voice whispered. It sounded like Roy, but deeper, distorted by static. My knees went weak. The air buzzed with electricity. A can fell from a shelf, rolling until it hit my foot. I flinched. The pumps outside hissed like something alive was feeding. The hum turned rhythmic, pulsing in threes. 3 seconds on, 1 second off. Each pulse made my chest tighten. I wanted to check the cameras, to make sure no one was out there, but the voice came again, quieter this time. If you see them, they see you. 3:10 in the morning. Only 3 minutes left. I clenched my fists, focusing on the ticking clock above the door. My vision blurred from the tension. The breathing moved away slowly toward the glass entrance. I risked one glance through the reflection. There was a shadow pressed against the window, long fingers splayed across the glass, stretching upward like cracks. The power surged. Lights went white-hot, then black. The hum stopped. I was alone in silence, so deep it rang in my ears. 3:13. When the power returned, the fog outside was gone, but every pump handle was missing. The hoses hung like torn veins, dripping something black onto the asphalt. The smell of gasoline mixed with decay. I knew deep down I hadn't survived those 10 minutes. I'd just been marked. I didn't sleep after that shift. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the fog curling around the pumps, the shadows pressing against the glass. By the time the sun rose, I was still sitting in my car outside my apartment, engine off, radio silent. I tried calling Roy again, but the number went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I just needed to hear his voice. Something human. That night, I told myself I wouldn't go back. But when the clock hit 9 o'clock at night, I found myself already driving there, headlights cutting through mist that hadn't lifted since dawn. The road seemed shorter this time, like the gas station was closer. Waiting. The store lights were on when I arrived. The air felt wrong again, still heavy, like being underwater. As I stepped inside, the phone behind the counter started ringing. I froze. It was 8:47 at night, not close to the forbidden hour yet, but something in my gut told me not to answer. After 6 rings, it stopped. A moment later, the phone rang again. I picked it up this time, needing answers. Roy's voice came through, but it sounded strained, metallic, as if coming from far away. "Don't quit," he said. "Roy, what's happening here?" I asked. Static filled the line, then his voice returned, lower. "They notice when someone leaves. Memorize Rule 7. It's the one that matters most." I looked down at the sheet. Rule 7 was one of the smudged ones. Unreadable. "Roy, I can't read it," I said. His voice trembled. "Then listen. If the phone rings between 3 and 3:20 in the morning, do not answer it, no matter what you hear." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but all I got was silence. Then, under the counter, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A small folded note wedged between old receipts. The handwriting wasn't Roy's. It was thin and jagged, written in black pencil. "They test you first. If you pass, they'll let you see what's underneath." The lights flickered. I turned off the radio, but the static didn't stop. It was coming from the air vent now, faint voices whispering over one another. The fog outside pressed closer to the windows, thick as concrete. The phone rang again. I checked the clock. 3:02 in the morning. My chest tightened. I backed away from the counter, the sound of the ringing echoing through the store like it came from every direction. The note under my hand felt warm, almost alive. The ringing stopped. Then, after a single beat of silence, something whispered my name from the receiver. I left the phone off the hook. By the 5th night, exhaustion felt permanent. My eyes burned, and every sound inside the gas station seemed amplified. The hum of the cooler, the buzz of the light, the faint crackle of static from the radio, even when it was turned off. The air smelled like oil and something faintly sweet, almost like burnt sugar. I told myself I'd stay near the door, ready to leave if anything strange happened. But the station had a way of trapping me. At 3:07 in the morning, the phone rang. The sound sliced through the silence like metal scraping glass. My first thought was Roy. Maybe he'd call again with an explanation. My hand hovered over the receiver before I remembered his warning. If the phone rings between 3 and 3:20 in the morning, don't answer. It kept ringing, 7 times, 10, then 12, each tone sharper than the last. I stared at the wall clock, its second hand stuck between 2 marks. Time wasn't moving right. The air pressure shifted, my ears popped, the ringing stopped. I exhaled, relief short-lived. A faint crackle came from the intercom above the counter, followed by the sound of breathing. "You didn't answer," a voice said. It wasn't Roy. It was too calm, too flat. "Good. That means you're learning." My mouth went dry. "Who are you?" I asked, but the static swallowed my voice. The line went dead, replaced by a faint whisper that came from the far end of the aisle. When I looked, the aisle lights flickered one by one, leading toward the glass doors. Something outside moved through the fog. Slow, tall, deliberate. I killed the lights, crouched behind the counter, and waited. Through the reflection in the cooler glass, I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the door, head tilted toward the sky, its shape blurry like heat distortion. Its shadow stretched across the floor, reaching toward me. Then the phone started ringing again, louder than before. I covered my ears, but the sound wasn't coming from one place anymore. The ringing echoed from the walls, from the vents, from under the floor. The lights flickered red. The shadow at the door pressed its hand to the glass, leaving behind a dark smear. I couldn't help it. I screamed, "Stop!" Everything went silent. The phone clicked off. The shadow was gone. Then, from behind me, the intercom crackled one last time. "Look outside," it whispered. Against every instinct, I did. Every pump light was on, glowing deep red like warning signals. The fog pulsed with the light, almost alive. And for a brief moment I thought I saw faces forming within it. Mouths open, whispering in unison. The words were impossible to hear, but I understood their meaning. "You're next." I unplugged the phone. The hum stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I didn't even try to sleep after that call. I sat in my car until daylight, staring at my hands, watching them tremble. I told myself I'd quit, that I'd never set foot in that place again. But by nightfall, my car was already back on that same road, headlights slicing through the fog. I wasn't driving. My hands were, but it didn't feel like they belonged to me anymore. When I reached the gas station, the air felt heavy, thick with humidity and static. The pumps were dark this time. The fog swirled slower, almost like it was waiting. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it, except for the note on the counter. It hadn't been there before. The handwriting was neat, looping, like an old letter. It read, "You left the phone off the hook. Good. Now let her in." I stared at the door, unsure if it was a threat or a command. At 3:01 in the morning, the lights dimmed. A faint knock came at the glass. Soft, polite. I froze. A woman stood outside in a pale uniform, the same color as the one hanging in the backroom locker marked Jenna. I'd seen her name tag once, thought she was a past employee. Roy mentioned her in passing. "Don't talk about Jenna. She didn't follow the rules." She smiled through the glass, lips pressed too tight, teeth too white. "Sorry I'm late for my shift," she said. Her voice didn't match her mouth. It came from the intercom speaker above me. Rule 9 echoed in my head. If anyone claims to be an employee from the past, lock the doors and turn off the lights. I reached for the switches. Her smile widened. The lights went out. The glass door creaked. I held my breath. When I turned back toward the counter, she was inside. Her uniform was dry now. Her hair hung limp and motionless, like it was underwater. "You're doing well?" she whispered. "Most people don't make it past the call." Her eyes didn't blink. Her hands rested perfectly still on the countertop, fingers long and too thin. "What do you want?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Not me," she said softly. "Them." She pointed toward the pumps, where faint red light began to glow again, pulsing like a heartbeat. "They're hungry tonight." The air grew hotter. The floor beneath me vibrated like something massive was moving below it. I could feel pressure, a slow rumble from under the tiles. The woman turned toward the door, smiling again. "I'll tell Roy you're ready," she said. Then, without sound or movement, she was gone. The red light from the pumps blinked twice, then died. The fog outside folded in on itself and disappeared. When I checked the cameras, the feed showed only me, standing at the counter, talking to empty air. When I clocked in the next night, I already knew something was different. The air wasn't heavy. It was hollow, like sound didn't belong there anymore. The hum of the lights was gone. Even the fog outside had thinned. It felt like the quiet before something wakes up. The rule sheet on the wall was missing, replaced by a single handwritten note. "If you found this, you've been chosen. Go below." There was no basement listed on the floor plan, but I remembered a hollow sound when I dropped my keys behind the shelves the night before. I moved everything aside and found a hatch in the floor, hidden beneath a rubber mat. No lock, just a steel ring handle. The metal was warm when I touched it. The door opened with a slow hiss, releasing a smell like gasoline mixed with damp soil. A staircase descended into darkness, carved from concrete and stained black near the edges. I aimed my flashlight down, but the beam barely reached the bottom. My hand shook as I stepped inside. The deeper I went, the warmer it got. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. At the base of the stairs, I found another row of gas pumps. Older, rusted, their hoses twisted like veins. Each one bore a number carved into the metal, but not in order. I counted. 1, 4, 7, 9. A low static hum filled the air, not from machinery, but from the walls themselves. I realized I could hear faint whispers within it. My name, Roy's voice, Jenna's laugh. They overlapped, repeating fragments of the rules over and over. "Don't look, don't answer, don't acknowledge." In the corner, a radio flickered on by itself. The same old country station Roy always played, but the song was backward, warped, each note reversed into a droning moan. My flashlight began to fade. The walls rippled. That's when I saw movement near one of the pumps. A figure crouched behind it, shape obscured by shadow. I called out, "Roy?" The figure turned. Its face was mine. Pale, sleepless, expressionless. It whispered, "You're late for your shift." The radio screeched. The lights overhead burst into red. I stumbled back toward the stairs, but the hatch above had closed. The hum grew louder, vibrating through my bones. Then the other pumps began to move. Slowly, like they were breathing, the hoses rising and curling toward me. I screamed, but the sound came out distorted, delayed, like the air didn't let it go. My reflection's eyes widened in the dark, and for the first time I realized it wasn't mimicking me. It was waiting. The flashlight died. The last thing I heard before blackness swallowed everything was a voice whispering from every direction. "You finally looked." I don't remember climbing out of the basement. One moment I was in the dark, drowning in the hum, and the next I was standing behind the counter, staring at the clock. 3:13 in the morning. The hands didn't move. The lights were on, the pumps were quiet, but everything felt wrong, too still, too perfect, like a photograph pretending to be real. My clothes were soaked in something slick and black. It smelled like oil and rot. I called out for Roy, but my voice sounded distant, like it came from another room. The phone was still off the hook from the night before, yet I heard static leaking through the line. Then, faintly, a voice said my name. "You did well," it whispered. "The others didn't make it this far." I grabbed the receiver, but the line only hissed. Behind the static, I heard breathing. Slow, mechanical, too steady to be human. I slammed the phone down. It didn't stop. The sound was inside my head now, echoing between each heartbeat. I checked the window. The fog outside was black, swallowing the horizon. The pumps glowed red again, though no power flowed to them. My reflection in the glass moved a second too late. It smiled when I didn't. I backed away. At 3:14, the front door creaked open by itself. A gust of wind carried in the smell of gasoline and earth. Footsteps echoed from outside, soft, measured, coming closer. Then I saw him. Roy, standing in the doorway, pale and wet, eyes hollow. "You passed the test," he said, voice trembling like broken radio static. "Now someone new will take over." "What test?" I demanded. My words barely made a sound. Roy stepped forward, leaving dark footprints that steamed against the tile. "You kept the rules," he said. "That means the shift is yours now." "I don't want this," I said. "I just want to leave." He shook his head. "There's no leaving. There's only the next clerk." He pointed to the glass door. Outside, through the fog, I saw a figure standing by the pumps. A boy, no older than 20, holding a folded sheet of paper. I could read the first line through the glass. "Lock the bathroom after midnight." He looked terrified. I turned back to Roy, but he was gone. Only the smell of gasoline remained. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The hum under the floor began again, deep and rhythmic, vibrating through my feet. The red glow from the pumps brightened until it was almost blinding. The clock still read 3:13. It always would. I walked to the window and looked out. The boy outside met my eyes. My reflection smiled again. His didn't. He hesitated, then started toward the door. I wanted to warn him, to scream, to tell him to run, but my mouth didn't open. I watched myself wave to him instead, calm and steady. When the bell above the door rang, the air shifted. Everything felt reset. Fresh coffee smell, new fluorescent hum, perfect shelves. The fog thinned just enough for the world to pretend. It was real again. The boy stepped inside, eyes wide. "Are you Roy?" he asked. I opened my mouth. The answer came out before I could stop it. "No," I said. "I'm the night clerk." Outside, the pumps began to hum,